Hey everybody, I just want to show you some things that I've been working on because I think they were kind of fun and you might enjoy looking at them and maybe be inspired or whatever. We're going to start here with Grid Matrix. Grid Matrix is a generative animation where squares come in from the edges and then explode into more squares. And if you want to see this and other of my animations in higher frame rate, then check out the link. But why am I showing you this? I don't know what to say. These things are called wow sticks. My friends and I made these a long time ago by hand in Flash. And over time, I kind of had them on my mind still because I thought they were interesting. And so I developed a way to create them algorithmically and generatively using equations. It describes it here. It basically randomly moves around two control points of Bezier curves. Um, Now that I read that again, I wonder if it's pronounced Bezier, like Fourier. You know what I'm saying? Who am I even trying to talk to about this? Most of these animations and things, most of these pieces of art have an explainer on them as well as to like how it was created and like the mechanism behind it. Acrylic minimalism. This was a fun one that I did because I do a lot of paintings that I try to make look like this. This one was actually inspired by another person's art that I saw on the internet, and I just liked the simplicity of it all. Um, but mine, I think I made mine even simpler. This one actually uses a special library called scribble.js. What am I going to say about this art? It's just fun to look at. I think it's cool. I like minimalism. I was trying to experiment with making things look more almost realistic, but like not fully. Um, so that's where the scribbles came in. Soundstorm is a game, and the way it works is you control this square, and squares come in from the edges, and you just avoid them. And it gives you your score and stuff. So that's playable. That one's free too. So this one is stained glass. This one's fun because it has all these cool variations that look like tessellations that come with cool color patterns. Almost looks like glass. It's kind of the idea. Some other ones, the polygon critters. This one is pretty fun. It's pretty unique, I think. I haven't seen anything like it before in terms of the vertex stealing. So people like to make animations that are simulations of environments and ecosystems, and this is almost like that, but instead of there being food and stuff, it's like they just steal each other's vertices once in a while, and they grow and shrink and multiply based off that. And um yeah, I like to put these on my TV sometimes, just have them on in the background. This one's called Flux Mesh, and this one is a special one that uses another library for simplex noise to calculate this over time. This is a game called Color Theorem. It took me about 10 years to figure out how to make this game because I didn't know about Voronoi noise until, like almost recently whenever I made this game. Um, a long time ago, I had the idea of, well, there's this thing called the four color theorem, and it basically means that given a map, you can color it in four colors without any of the states touching, right? And the cool thing about that is that you can turn a game out of it. So it's like, okay, make a random map and then try to color it without any of the, states, counties, cities, whatever they are touching each other. And so you can do that, but then how do you make the map, right? You can either draw it by hand or you can have some kind of an algorithm that draws the shapes for you. The difficulty becomes drawing nice shapes that actually are playable for a game like this. And because like sometimes you'll get really tiny, like the way I was doing the algorithms earlier was just like lines moving across the page. And whenever you had the intersections like that, sometimes you would just have too small of areas that weren't really fun to play with. So later on, when I learned about Voronoi noise, it allowed me to make these shapes in a really dynamic way where each of these iterations, each of the variations, each of these NFTs will be a different set of levels, but each NFT will be its own set of levels every time. So like if I run this one, it'll be the same shape when I reload it. So it's like the same. right? So, oh yeah, and by the way, whenever you win each round, you go to the next round automatically, and then the next round has one more shape to color in. And yeah, so this is a really cool way of doing it. Call it color theorem because it's like the four color theorem. Yeah. So the next one is stellar noise. I started experimenting with shaders. Shaders are a cool way to do visual things because you can do what looks like a lot of computation very quickly because it's computing the color per pixel essentially instead of computing the line values and then doing other stuff based off that. Um, so yeah, I had the idea. I've been wanting to make my own kind of noise like this in the middle here. So I thought that was kind of fun. They all have different variations like that, different zoom levels and symmetries like that. Um, the next one we can look at is called Echoes. This was one of my first attempts of that are published actually of canvas style art, where it actually looks like it's drawn drawn on the canvas itself, where there's a border and everything. And yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to experiment with a little bit more acrylic looking painted realism. Um, the next one is called Crystal Shards, and it's basically a bunch of points that bounce around and they connect lines to each other. And the lines have a color, and as that line gets dragged along, it wipes that color along with it. And then sometimes the lines, I would say disappear, but it's more like reconnect and disconnect and whatever between the different points. And so you just get these interesting, first of all, background interactions of all the colors, but secondly, just like all these different interesting shapes that you get. There's also different opacity or transparency levels like this. So sometimes you can see through them and it gives you really crystal kind of results like that. Yeah. And these can all be ran in full screen mode. And then I actually use them as screensavers. I think it's called Web View Screensaver, something like that. The next one is another shader, a little bit more complex and less symmetrical. This one is based off of layering noise and then changing how that noise is kind of angled and the depth of it as well. This was a study on watch time in terms of figuring out what it took to get something to be watched for longer. And the reason I was thinking about that is because there's a lot of talk about the algorithms of social media trying to just get people to engage and stay on their apps as long as possible. So they maximize and optimize for watch time and they promote videos that optimize for watch time. And I was trying to generalize the form of, well, what if it wasn't a video that was explaining stuff and hooked you on the content of it, but it was just like purely visually entertaining, I suppose, enough to retain your attention long term, or at least enough to warrant this thing to be successful as a study, right? It's like an etude. This is a study in watch time. And it's because the patterns are almost repeating, but just different enough. And then when they're different, they're not jarring. So it doesn't distract you and kind of make it uncomfortable. It's constantly bringing you back into looking at it because it seems like there's something new to look at all the time. But it's not too new that it seems like, so it seems like you can almost predict it and it still feels familiar enough to be comfortable. Um, and then the cool thing is there are many different color variations that you can go through, and also different zoom levels. And this is the interesting thing is most of this is based off of one random variable parameter, and so that one variable changes the speed that this thing moves around, as well as the zoom level, as well as the tilt amount and how much it moves like that over time. So yeah, it's just supposed to be interesting to look at. I think it's one of the more intricate and trippy psychedelic things that I've made. Super fun. Let's see it in full screen mode. It's pretty intense. And sometimes you get these other little colors you wouldn't have expected in there because like it seems like it's hiding a color scheme somewhere. So those are fun. My latest one is called Quasi Prism, and I actually have a longer video about this one out, talking about how I made it in terms of the inspiration process and where I got the ideas from. And it's basically just this: you have a couple of rectangles that come in from the right side of the screen, and their speeds are based off of the width of the canvas. So, like for example, these will be going a little bit faster on average than these, because they're essentially supposed to cross the screen in the same amount of time, regardless of the screen type that you put it on. But of course, that depends on computing power. Because like if you put this on a fridge or something, theoretically it should be really quick, but like because of it's a narrow window, but the refrigerator is going to have a hard time dealing with all of these color calculations. So it's going to be a little bit slower, and then it's going to look slower, even though. So it's just weird trade offs. But um, yeah, basically the way it works is there are many different color blending modes. Whenever you have colors interact with each other, they can add, multiply, color dodge, all sorts of different things. And whenever you put a bunch of them together in random orders, you get stuff like this. And yeah, I don't know. Peace.